Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Hi, in just a moment we'll say good evening to our Monday pundit, who is Simon Darby. Lots to talk about there, and quite a few emails that have come in during the week with people wanting to put questions to Simon. He's an interesting guy, he's got interesting views. He's concerned about the environment. He enjoys his walks and his countryside. He loves Britain and perhaps, I don't know, I've never asked him, maybe even more so England. He's a nationalist, and he is the deputy leader of the BNP. A number of stories to talk about this evening, including the state of the economy, of course. And a very interesting story I want to spring out on him to start with, which is as follows. The US Department of Defense has just reported that the biggest threat to the US is posed not by Russia or China, not by Iran or Afghanistan, but by, wait for it, Mexico, where the growing power of the drug cartels and the increasing chaos in Mexico, the Defense Department in America says, is a threat, not particularly to US security, but to the US fabric of society, which is a complete springer as far as I'm concerned, that America is now fearing their public enemy number one is now Mexico. Evening to you, Simon Darby.
Good evening, Tommy.
A bit of a springer for that one yourself, I would have thought, but completely on the hoof and off the cuff. I suppose you just got to keep up, really, with world events if you possibly can.
Yeah, it's narco-terrorism. That's what we're dealing with here. It's something that I've been made aware of for the last 2 or 3 years, but it's no surprise to me that the Americans have all of a sudden realised that they do have a massive problem with drugs, and we have a similar problem here as well.
Yeah, the Americans, of course, are unlucky in this respect in that they share a massive and almost entirely unpoliceable border with Mexico. But do you and your party believe that we have a similar sort of infiltration problem in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, we do. Recreational drugs are one thing. Obviously, we've got policies, ideas with regards to that, but the far more serious matter is the Class A drugs, heroin, cocaine, crystal meth, that kind of narcotic. And unfortunately, we have people in this country, and indeed it would appear in America as well, who have taken it upon themselves to poison our youth as a means of narco-terrorism, and, as that report said, destroy the very fabric of society.
So your party would be tough on drugs?
Very tough. It's something that really alarms me. Obviously, we've got problems with drink in this country as well, but that pales into insignificance with regards drugs. The way young kids are hooked on drugs. I'm aware of the methods that these people use by impregnating cannabis with heroin to get them hooked on drugs. And it's a very, very nasty business. And I've seen parents whose lives have basically been ruined because their kids have turned into junkies and prostitutes, and it's something that's swept under the carpet in this country, and it's something we would want to shine a light on, and those responsible will not be getting any mercy from us.
We'll have to come back to that. That's certainly, you're not pulling your punches there. Okay. Simon Darby's with us. If you want to talk to Simon or put a question to Simon via either Skype text or email, our studio address, email-wise, studio@playradiouk.com. You can Skype play.radio.uk. If you want to talk to Simon, our phone line's 01243 55 60 60. Simon, the economy looks like being the issue right the way through 2009 around the world and also in the United Kingdom. Can I ask you your take on the Sir Fred Goodwin pension story?
Oh, dear. It's just appalling, isn't it, really, when we own the banks now, technically. We own these banks, and yet these guys still treat them like their own private companies. Yes, he's got a legal right to take that, but I really would be embarrassed if I was in his position. I'd be too embarrassed to take that pension, especially at that level. But it's ironic now that it's our money that's being used. When I want to go and borrow my own money, I have to pay interest on it. That's technically, we own the banks, and yet this guy can flagrantly flout the complete and utter failure of the banking system and the speculative risks that these people have taken. The Royal Bank of Scotland it's been going for hundreds of years, and it was that one Dutch bank, I believe, that they brought out. No reason for it whatsoever, and I simply can't understand the logic that these people have used in acquiring these things. Even Lloyds TSB, a stable bank, why on earth did they take on HBOS with the losses that they've got? So right to the very recent history of this thing, we've seen massive mistakes from those people who are supposedly experts in their field.
Now, everybody who's supposed to know their onions is saying that the last thing we should do is indulge in protectionism. What do you understand protectionism to be, and is it something that you wouldn't rule out?
I think it's inevitable now that nations are going to have to look after their own population. We've seen shares today slide even further. I think the Dow's touched a low until about 1997. It hasn't been so low. It's gone below 7,000. The FTSE's gone down as well, dragged down on worries about the latest loss. I think it's AIG. I think it's a £62 billion loss, an astronomical figure. But that, again, is nothing compared to what's happening in Eastern Europe. We've seen the Eastern European economies now beginning to collapse and cry out for more money, and I'm afraid there simply isn't going to be enough money to print. Sooner rather than later, we're going to have to look at the system, which is based on the ridiculous fallacy of perpetual growth, and realise that we're going to have to do something more sustainable.
A lot of people will be attracted to what you're saying in the short term. Do you think that this kind of what others would call isolationism is a serious medium to long-term solution?
See, again, we're going into these... I don't blame you for using the terms, but the way these things are actually spun out, protectionism, isolationism, they sound ostensibly bad, don't they? We shouldn't be getting involved with this kind of thing. But it's the same business once again, and it's common sense. That's all we're looking for, to look after our own people. And we're not saying we're not going to trade with anybody else. Certainly if there are goods that we cannot make or can be made perhaps environmentally better elsewhere, then that's where we should go. But for instance, we don't make cars anymore in this country. A scandal. I mean, an area that I come from, the West Midlands, used to be the workplace of the world. I mean, and now we don't make anything. There surely has to be a call for instance, civil servants, members of the NHS, to have incentives to buy British-built cars. That's where we would start. And I would guess that those people driving those cars in the future would have a certain amount of satisfaction from the fact that they're keeping that money circulated within the economy. Okay, I'm using just one example there, but that's the kind of philosophy we'd like to bring in. Not all of a sudden, but it's a process of gradualism where people have to realise that money can't flood out of the country all of the time, otherwise we're going to impoverish ourselves.
Simon Darby is our Monday Pundit. If you're one of our, and it's thousands of podcasters, especially when Simon is on, you're not out of the equation. If you want to email a question or a point to Simon, or indeed to anybody who's appearing on Global News Talk, you can do that by using tommy@playradiouk.com. So if you're listening live, it's studio@playradiouk.com. But if it's the middle of the week and it's now pouring with rain in the United Kingdom, or actually wherever you are podcasting this, we have podcasters of Simon's contributions in 27 countries at the moment. Please do email your thoughts and questions. It's tommy@playradiouk.com. And Simon, you tend to attract slightly longer emails than your average radio show, so bear with me. This is coming from Mark. He says... questions for Simon Darby, please. 1, What are the public supposed to make of Mein Kampf is my Bible, as said by the late John Tyndall, in brackets the last chairman and founder of the modern BNP? Sorry about that, there's a knuckle duster right from the start.
Okay, yeah, I knew John. I don't know whether he ever said that. John certainly was a hardliner. I wouldn't have joined the BNP when John was chairman. I waited for Nick Griffin to take over in 1999 before I became involved with the party. John had a different way of doing things, and that's that. But that's 1999. That's a long time ago, and unfortunately, John is now dead, driven to his death after being persecuted by the BBC, for which I and a number of other members will not forget.
Okay, that also answers Mark's question 2 about an image that he's found on the internet of allegedly showing John Tyndall dressed as a Nazi. But then we've had Third in Line to the Throne doing the same thing, so we don't know about the circumstances of that. So let's move on. Question 3, this is then from Mark, and there are 5, so we'll crack on. What are the public supposed to make, he says, of Nick Griffin, this is your party's leader's, speech to the American Friends of the BNP in the year 2000, where he said, and I'm quoting, "Now we don't speak about racial purity, we speak about racial identity, and, quote, we are not selling out our ideas, we are selling our ideas." Simon?
Well, we are an ethno-nationalist party. I'm not going to hide from that at all. I think Nick was telling American people that he's proud to be white, as indeed I am proud to be white. I don't see what the problem is.
Okay, Louis just Skype texting. We'll come back to Mark's email. There are a couple more questions on it. Louis asks you, could Simon please, and we have touched on this before on a previous show and therefore podcast, Simon, but maybe you could just give us your thumb sketch again. Could Simon outline his views on UKIP in regards to the upcoming Euro elections? For international listeners, well, Simon, you explain who UKIP are and what they're about.
Yeah, UKIP are a party that did very well in 2004. They got several MEPs elected, ostensibly on an anti-European ticket. Their critics may argue that that's it. There's nothing more to the party than that. Since then, those MEPs have had very little effect, and they were boosted by Mr. Kilroy Silk, who suddenly left. They've had a number of defections. Their vote is acknowledged as having collapsed, and we feel that the 16% that they won in the 2004 elections, some of that will go to the Conservatives, and a good proportion of that will go to us. And we feel that will be enough, along with votes from the Labour Party and indeed the Lib Dems, to allow us to enter Strasbourg as respective MEPs for various regions.
Back to Mark's email. He says the BNP are entitled to change, in his opinion. He says they are growing too, but I think that while they continue to leave their dirty laundry unwashed, it will always be an arrested development. So he says, question 4, will the BNP acknowledge the fascists in its past and make a clean and formal break from their legacy? This is not about policy, it's about individuals, by the way.
Well, I think that's already happened. I don't see why we should make some kind of statement. I mean, a political party is it grows organically. The fact that we get such tremendous votes nowadays, 41% in Swanley, we're picking up regular 20-30%. If you look at the 4 elections that we've got coming up this Thursday, I have a feeling, and you probably heard it here first, that we're going to take one of those as well. The British public aren't fools. They're not going to vote for a fascist organisation as is described there. They're voting for a modern nationalist party. They've got their finger on the pulse. A party that is seen as the party on the doorstep rather than the party on the television.
Okay, and last question for Mark, and it's this: will the BNP explain its position on race as being real? I'm not entirely sure if I understand this question, but I'll read it to you, Simon, as it comes in from Mark. Will the BNP explain its position on race as being real? Such a crucial position, he says, should surely be founded on scientific support if it is not to be seen as prejudice.
I don't really know where he's going with that, to be honest.
Let's get him, no doubt he's listening. Let's get him to rephrase that question, because, like you, Simon, I'm not exactly sure that we know what the question is. Okay, this then from Aaron.
I mean, if his question is, that do we acknowledge the concept of race? Yes, we do. I mean, we do believe that peoples are different. That's just the way nature is, I'm afraid. People are different. We're not saying that anybody's better or anybody's inferior. It's just that people are different. The concept of race is a very valid term.
Okay. Then his supplementary was, such a crucial position should surely be founded on scientific support.
Well, I think we have the weight of science on our side, really. When people deny the concept of race, I think they're the people that really are pushing the boundaries of science, shall we say, to be polite.
Okay, thanks for that. Reminder, at home, if you're listening live, studio@playradiouk.com is our email address. If you're podcasting this, it's tommy@playradiouk.com. If you'd like to put a point or a question to Simon Darby, who's our regular Monday pundit on Play Talk UK. Finally then, this email from Aaron Davis in Hockley, Essex. Simon, he says, this is the first time I've ever emailed a radio show, but I do feel I have to let you know how happy I am that you're on the air. This is his point. The main reason for contacting you, after so many years of listening to the radio, is the BNP debate and the introduction of Simon Darby. I've never been so excited by a topic, and I am completely enthralled by the reaction to the chance you have given him on Play Radio. I'm wholeheartedly in agreement that all people, no matter what their outlook on life, should have a chance to tell people where they're coming from. I'm neither in agreement nor disagreement to the policies of the BNP, but I'm grateful for the opportunity you have supplied to hear where they are coming from. I feel the aggression from certain callers and mailers is down to the built-in green ink brigade that the Brits are being conditioned to become. It's far more interesting to shout and scream about a subject you've got no knowledge about than it is to sit back and listen to them and maybe achieve a level of understanding, not necessarily agreement, just understanding. Well, that's what we at Play Radio are all about, Simon, and I presume that you would echo what Aaron is saying, that you just want to explain what it is you think and what it is your party is all about. And you were telling me on the phone earlier today that, you know, it is an uphill struggle for the BNP, just this business of being able to explain what you want to explain.
Yeah, it's a policy of the left to try and snuff us out at every opportunity. That's why you don't see us on Question Time or any of the really big debates or whatever, because the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats insist on not sharing a platform with us, with the sole purpose of denying the public the right to listen to what we've got to say. That's all we want. I mean, that's what politics is all about, and that's what democracy is all about. We put forward ideas, some of which are new, maybe radical, but we think that they're pretty hard to knock down in a lot of cases. Sometimes we can be argued against successfully, but it doesn't happen very often. And we feel that we carry the aspirations of many, many ordinary British people who, as that email quite rightly said, have been pre-programmed almost to reject anything other than a liberal multicultural argument.
David Krebs emails, thank you for this. This one just in. He says, subject Simon Darby. Simon, why do the whole mainstream media hate you?
Well, this is interesting. I mean, I've been studying this for quite a while. Unfortunately, the political establishment, the democratic system, has been contaminated in that, and the position of trust that they hold within the British people has been abused, in that certain papers, certain titles, openly side with various political parties and try and pass themselves off as merely mainstream conveyors of news and political opinion. I mean, I can tell you about the Daily Mirror, for instance, that takes it upon itself every major election to produce a special bumper anti-BNP special, a full-colour pull-out detailing how you shouldn't vote for the BNP. That passes itself off as a newspaper that is impartial and yet is openly aligned to the Labour Party. The BBC, who we've had, bear in mind 2 years ago, the BBC tried to get my friend and chairman of this party, Nick Griffin, locked in prison for 7 years. They set him up with various bugging devices in private meetings that we were having and gloated about the concept of jailing him and my other friend Mark Collett for years. Almost beyond belief that in a society that cherishes the concept of being the cradle of democracy, the publicly funded main broadcaster can conspire with the Labour Party to lock up a political opponent. But that happened 2 years ago.
Louise emails. Thank you for this, Louise. A question for Simon Darby. If the BNP take power, would they allow Black, Asian and Jewish presenters to broadcast on any radio or television network in this country?
I don't see why not. We've got nothing in our policy to stipulate who can and cannot broadcast. Our problems are with the organised foreign ownership of large chunks of the British media, which we regard as very unhealthy indeed. For instance, the Evening Standard, an institution in our capital city, has recently been taken over by a former KGB agent, and I would suggest that that's not a particularly healthy state of affairs.
We've already overrun, Simon, and I know you're busy at the BNP at the moment. What have you got? What are you dealing with at the moment?
Oh dear, so many things. It's just all go. It really is. We're raising money for the European elections. We've got a series of Battle for Britain fundraising events, and they're a great deal of fun. I went to one on Coventry, in Coventry the other night, and we've got several lined up across the country. We've got elections coming across, one or two foreign journalists wanting to cover our British Jobs for British Workers campaigns. So it's all go. It really is all go. I shall be glad when June the 4th is here, or June the 7th. That's when the count's going to take place. Then I shall be able to have a bit of a rest, maybe a holiday if I'm lucky.
Got two more emails for you, if you would, Simon.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Luke emails. With regards to John Tyndall being pictured in a Nazi uniform, Luke says, Tyndall was a member of Colin Jordan's neo-Nazi group, the National Socialist Movement. So, he says, it's pretty safe to say it wouldn't have been a Prince Harry-style pissabout. There is also a video on YouTube from a BBC documentary of Tyndall speaking at a BNP meeting before he died, and Luke says it is pretty extreme. He says, would I ask Simon about his opinions of Jean-Marie Le Pen? Says I would be really interested to hear his thoughts on the man.
Yeah, I've met Jean-Marie Le Pen, very dignified French politician, someone who served his country, very brave man, very courageous man, and unfortunately it's France's loss that Jean-Marie Le Pen will never be the president of France, and perhaps when France actually goes towards becoming an Islamic Republic sooner than Britain, then I think the French will regret that very, very much. Regards the earlier comments about Mr. Tyndall, again, we see left-wing arguments here, the idea that they can stigmatise one particular person, one particular aspect of that person, allegedly, and then that corrupts the whole nationalist message. It's hard to explain, really, but I don't know whether you remember there was a story about a fox that allegedly attacked a baby down in somewhere in the south. It's like saying, oh, well, all foxes attack babies. Mm. It's that same kind of logic. It's not scientific, and a lot of the left's arguments can be honed down to this sensationalist, simplistic and emotive assault, and that's a prime example.
Last email then for this evening with Simon Darby. Vic has emailed in, question for Simon, what does Simon make of, in inverted commas, he's put positive action policies adopted by many major British employers? He goes on, I think I know what his answer's going to be. I believe that they are racist against white people and should be made unlawful. Best person for the job, I say. I think he means you.
How do you mean? He means me as
the
best person for the job?
For number 10, I think he means. But we'll come back to that another time.
Oh, I see.
Oh, no, sorry. No, I think he means... I wasn't quite... No, I'm lying. I didn't read it carefully. He means the best person should get the job regardless of their background.
Yeah, I think he's referring to a clause in the Race Relations Act which means that ethnic minorities can be advertised specifically for... it's quite ridiculous, really, when you think about it, when you see so many of our people in this country out of a job, and how frustrating that must be for a guy to read at the bottom that this would particularly suit a member of the ethnic minority community. We know what that means. It's not very nice, and I really don't know how long this humiliation of our people can carry on for, other than to know that it can't go on for too much longer. We even have black and Asian people ringing us up about that and say how disgusted they are, and as that chap's emailed there, it should be best person for the job, simple as that. It's patronising to think that ethnic minority people should require that special help just to get a job, so it doesn't do anybody any favours at all.
Simon, as usual, thank you very much for your punditry, your thoughts on world and national events, and for fielding all those emails, which went right to the heart of things rather wonderfully well. I'm grateful for your time. Always good talking to you. Those baggies are going down, aren't they?
It doesn't look good, Tommy. It really doesn't. I don't like looking at the Premiership table anymore, to be honest. It's not on the menu now, the Premiership table. I don't look at it.
Fair enough. All right, talk to you next week, Simon.
Yep, thanks, Tommy. Good night.
Good night.
Now, live across the UK, the national and international news update.
In Pakistan, President Asif al-Zardari will see growing turmoil unless he takes steps to bolster democracy, as opposition coalesces around a demand for an independent judiciary, his main rival said today. In China, an art collector revealed himself today as the man behind the winning bids for two important bronzes auctioned at Christie's over Beijing's objections, then announced he had no intention of paying the $36 million. And India has made an appeal to Sri Lanka to accept the ceasefire offer made by the LTTE, that's Tamil Tigers, to enable the evacuation of civilians trapped in northern Sri Lanka's conflict zones. External Affairs Minister Pranab Mukherjee said on Saturday that this move would provide relief to 70,000 odd people who were in dire need of food, water and medicines.
UK weather.
Southern and western England and Wales, fairly cloudy with occasional light rain, increasingly cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland, with wintry showers in the west, dry with broken cloud elsewhere. Tuesday, wet and windy with coastal gales, the rain turning heavier by the afternoon, especially in the west, colder in the north with significant snowfall on higher ground across Scotland.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation, the Play Radio podcast.
They are a joy to use in many ways. I think the thing that I don't like about it is that the software tends to cost a bit more. There's less choice of software, there's less choice of hardware, but if you're willing to accept those, what I would see as limitations, you do often have an easier time of it.
Want to hear the rest? Just go to playradiouk.com/podcast.
The Isle of Wight Jazz Festival is back. From the 17th to the 19th of April, Eastdean hosts this legendary event in beautiful surroundings, providing the perfect atmosphere to accompany this musical cornerstone. Don't miss the Sunday night finale featuring Ray Gelato and the Giants with special guest Claire Martin. Play jazz and the Isle of Wight Jazz Festival, the perfect partnership. For more information or to book a ticket, then go to iowjazzfestival.co.uk or call 01983 856 200. Play jazz and the Isle of Wight Jazz Festival, the perfect partnership.
Hi, this is Paul Anthony. The warm-up to the weekend is now here on Play 2 from 4 till 8. Great Friday feeling tunes with songs like this. And what about this? Online around the world, 4 till 8 every Friday. The warm-up to the weekend on Play 2 UK with Paul Anthony, your gateway to fun.
Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
Global news, it's 10:32 UK time, and let me see, that will be 11:32 across Europe. Good day if you're listening around the world, in the United States, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, Australia, China, Japan, Iran, Russia, Poland, Spain, Norway, Sweden, where we have podcasters. Good evening to you if you're a podcaster, an international podcaster, whether you're an expat or a national of those countries that I've mentioned. We're able to track the activity of our podcasters and find out which country you're in. Nothing more or less than that. Nothing. Don't worry, we're not stalking you. But I just want to ask you this. If you are a podcaster outside the United Kingdom, we would like you to contact us and let us know if you're interested in subbing, it's called, in stories and angles on basically what it's like where you are. So we're looking for, as it were, international contributors or correspondents. But we're not looking for the usual journalist type doing that. So if you are listening to this as a podcast and you are listening to it in any one of those countries that I've mentioned, and we know that we have podcasters in, as I said, the United States, Canada, Argentina, Brazil, Russia, did I mention? The Republic of Iran, which is really interesting. Hello, if that's you. Japan, China, several listeners, podcasters in China. Are you a Chinese national? Perhaps listening to find out how the world is reporting the rest of the world. Maybe you're using the podcasts to improve your English, which is something that we know quite a few people do. But email me and just tell me who you are, and your thoughts on what we do are always useful. How you podcast, how you use your podcast. And if you're ever interested in emailing us some information about what is going on in your town, city or country, whether it's large or small, whether it's a big issue or just something that's going on that catches your eye, we want to make our global news talk as global as possible. So the email address, here it comes for that. If you're a podcaster and you podcast from outside the United Kingdom, email Tommy at playradiouk.com. That's Tommy at playradiouk.com. A reminder, if you want to contact the programme live, it's studio at playradiouk.com, or you can Skype in and either Skype text with a comment or speak using Skype. play.radio.uk is our Skype address. And the good old dog and bone, Cockney rhyming slang. Do people still use Cockney rhyming slang? I doubt it, really. Granddads do, and chaps who think they're wags do. But anyway, the phone used to be the dog and bone, and our number there is 01243 55 60 60. I took a phone call during, while Simon was on the air, from a caller who wanted to talk about the University Challenge story. University Challenge is a long-running UK television quiz show in which a team of 4 representatives of a British university go head-to-head with another university, also a team of 4. It's quite highbrow, and it's always been presented by a very highbrow presenter. The guy presenting it at the moment is called Jeremy Paxman, who will be knighted eventually, I suppose. And before that, it was the fantastically named Bamber Gascoigne. Now, the reason that University Challenge is twice big in the news in the United Kingdom is, first of all, because the last final, which was held a few days ago, was graced by a woman, a young girl, 26 years of age, Gail Nuttall, second name's run out of my mind, and I'm doing this all from memory, who answered something like 80% of all the questions that were set and did it easily. None of that having to hunt round for the information, having pressed her buzzer. It was just all there. She is said to be the most impressive contestant and possibly one of the most impressive minds that we've ever seen on our television screens. However, that prompted an awful lot of people to go blogging, and you know how cruel the cowards who blog and say shitty things can be? Well, they went for her because they said she looked smug every time she answered a question. Well, what happened was she was pleased to have been able to answer the question correctly, and so she had a slight smile about her. Well, who's going to deny her that? However, all that hit the fan about 3 or 4 days ago, but there's been a second story that's put this programme, University Challenge, right onto the front pages, and it is this, that one of her team, and it's an Oxford college, I forget which one, is it Corpus Christi, which only has 400 students. It's a very tight-knit, intimate college, only 400 students. To find 4 people who are prepared to go on telly and risk all is no mean feat, but it turns out that one of these students wasn't eligible. One of the students had left the previous summer. And it's an obvious proviso that the student representatives on this show, University Challenge, are actually at the university at the time. Although it would probably be quite a good show to have exes, you know. I think they've done it. But not for the big one, which is the University Challenge. So you've got yourself a really interesting bunch of talking points here, because these people are the creme de la creme. In such a tiny college, I would have thought that not only did all the students know that the fellow who had left the year before was not eligible, but I would have thought so would all the, now what do they call them at universities? Dons, chancellors, lecturers, everybody, even down to the janitor and the cleaners, probably knew basically they were playing a ringer. That's what they call it in football, if somebody's on the pitch and they shouldn't be there. A ringer. What do we think about this? I hadn't stopped to think about it because for some reason I found myself believing it was some kind of a show business story, and like you, good listener, I tend to steer clear of show business stories, which leads me on to another talking point. In the United Kingdom at the moment, we have a woman who is dying of terminal cancer, a young woman, a favourite young woman, in many ways, in as much as she's fundamentally flawed and yet incredibly endearing. And over the next, we don't know how many weeks she's got, one newspaper had her saying that she didn't think she had more than a month to live. She's only young, I don't know what she is, in her 20s. I think, and it's going to bring the nation to a standstill. We'll come back to that in just a second. We've got Ali who's called on Skype. Hello, Ali.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Hi, it's just about that University Challenge thing.
What do you say?
Well, I think it's bollocks that Oxford are allowed to enter as colleges anyway, because within their university they've got so many colleges that it doesn't really make it a University Challenge.
Do you know what? That's technical, isn't it, really? But it's a good point.
Well, it's just like, how can they enter multiple teams for one university? Because they're always in the final. I mean, I know they've got, like, clever students, but
yeah,
you just, like, put in more sort of teams into the mix.
Yeah. I wonder how they do it. I wonder how at the universities they do it. Do they put a notice on the notice board saying, we're entering this year's University Challenge? If you
there's... From what I know about it, it's you go through a series of tests, and they're just sort of like crop it down till you got a team of 4 that are like your best performing students.
Is that how they do it? How do you know?
Well, that's what I've heard. Yeah.
Are you a university type yourself?
I am. Yeah.
Which university did you grace, or are you at?
I am at Manchester now.
You are you?
Yeah.
Doing what?
Sorry?
Doing what, Ali?
Oh, I study architecture.
Okay. All right, well, you know that you're going to be up to your ears in BBC people shortly, because they're all moving to Manchester, aren't they?
Yeah, there's plenty to say about it.
About which?
Well, about what Oxford have done there. But, I mean,
what would you do to them?
Not something...
Do they deserve to somehow be banned, like Dwayne Chambers was, for 3 years for this?
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Would you imprison them?
'Cause well, no, but it's conscious.
Why
it's
not?
a conscious. They've consciously cheated.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't.
They've cheated.
Yeah, but I don't think they won. They didn't win cash or anything from it.
Well,
It was more just the title.
yeah, I know, but they still stole somebody else's moment.
But well, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I just think like the whole university should be banned. Really.
I say a high-profile trial, so that we can find out just how many of the people at Corpus Christi went along with this blatant fraud,
Yeah.
and if necessary, I think custodial sentences would not be out of order. Just as a warning, put a shot across their bows, because otherwise these people are going to end up running banks. Uh-oh!
But it's pretty much been overlooked by the BBC, hasn't it? Because at the end of the day, it's only a game show, and it's up to their researchers to make it fair and to put across a fair sort of competition.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I think it's unfair that Cambridge and Oxford enter as colleges anyway.
Okay.
So
Well, did you try to get into one of the hotshot universities? I'm not accusing Manchester. No, you didn't.
no,
No.
I don't think I've ever been the type to really go.
Don't you guys have to study for 7 years, or at least you did when I was a boy, to be an architect?
Apparently, it's split up now. So you do it in stages, and it's up to you when you sort of how far you take it, or when you do different bits. But yeah, it's quite long.
And how far are you into your course?
I'm just about to finish. Well, I'm about to finish the first part of the academic side of it, and then we've got to do a year work.
Okay.
But like with the current sort of economics, that's looking quite unlikely.
Right.
So then it's another 2 after that, and then more work experience.
Oh, you've done some work experience as an architect?
No, I've got to get it all in now.
Right. Okay, well, I hope they get you doing something actually useful rather than just, getting people cups of coffee and things, which can happen. I've got to crack on, Ali. You've generated a bit of a queue here. I'm grateful for your Skype.
No worries.
Take it easy. Okay, phone lines are now solid, so if you are calling, keep calling or call back up. We can only take calls one at a time at the moment, but Play Talk UK is expanding its technology as well as its airtime. Let's go to line 3. Who's this? Hello? Hello? Okay. Let's take line 5. Good evening.
I feel that Corpus Christi should be banned from taking part in any more university challenges
Ever.
until they learn how to build eligible players who be on their courses on time.
Absolutely. Thank you for that very much indeed. And line 3. Good evening to you.
Hello, Tommy. It's Davey again.
Hello there.
Your friend from Manchester just on the line there saying you didn't think it was fair that Cambridge and Oxford go on as colleges and everybody else goes on as universities, yeah?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Oxford and Cambridge, with the size of universities and the sort of sifting and level of people in those universities in comparison with some of the other universities, I'm not saying all of them, but some of them, if they were to get in competition, like the whole of Cambridge University's aligned alumni against something like Decorum College from Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
An absolute walkover.
It would, unless they skewed it slightly, because the 4 students from Hemel Hempstead, they could probably answer questions about Coronation Street and the Teletubbies.
I think they could always have a handicap system whereby they lobotomise these Oxbridge students before coming on.
I'd watch that.
I'm so amused by the guy saying that it was unfair.
Yeah.
It completely cracked me up.
Are you listening, Ali? You're being torn apart here by this guy. Yeah, it's like they should allow... You're right, though. He's right. They should allow other universities in the boat race. Let's have a whole fucking armada of ships coming down the Thames. Okay. Can you imagine? Again, the 8 piss artists from Hemel Hempstead. And
I think I'd know half of them.
I would stay in and watch that on telly if they if any university was eligible to row in the boat race. That would bring it back onto mainstream television.
You could see him practising on the gate, couldn't you? Putting out punts on the gate and wondering why they couldn't get it out of the mud.
Yeah. Good talking with you. Thank you very much indeed for your humour. Yeah, try and settle down now. Okay. 01243 55 60 60 is the switchboard number. If you're dialing from outside the United Kingdom, it's 0044 124 3 55 60 60. Inside the United Kingdom, straightforward 01243 55 60 60. Reminder, our email address is studio@playradiouk.com. Unless you're podcasting this, good day to you, podcaster. Always interested in finding out how podcasts are consumed. Took an email from somebody just before we came on air. Just quickly find it. It's a chap who is walking his way to a trim figure. And what keeps him power walking, he says, is that he walks... I'm doing this from memory now because I can't find it. It's been submerged by emails for Simon Darby. He says that he power walks as long as the podcast lasts. So it's the podcasts are helping get him fit. But if you are a podcaster, what is your routine? Do you listen to the podcast maybe on your way into work or college or something? Walking the dog? Or is it something you pot around the house, or is it something you listen to on your PC at work? Notice quite a lot of podcasting activity is Monday to Friday, even though those podcasts are available Saturday, Sunday. And then although we only have one show available for podcast on a Monday, which is the Sunday Roast from 8 until 11 on a Sunday evening, that then goes into the system and it's available about lunchtime Monday. Notice a spike, they call it, in podcasting activity on Mondays. So our guess is that there are a lot of people who like to podcast the talk shows for their working week, or maybe when they arrive at work. So really interested to find out, good podcaster, just what your routine is and how you consume these podcasts. Do you want us to take the news out, or since we go to great length to bring you global news, and it's news that you almost certainly won't hear on British television, radio and newspapers, so it's fresh. For example, there's a very interesting story from Australia tonight, which we'll get to in just a second. In fact, we'll get to it now, because what I'll do is bring you another wodge of international news.
Now, live across the UK, the national and international news update.
Yeah, in fact, I'll start with this one. It is in Tasmania, and it goes like this. It's now believed that a human factor is suspected in the mass beaching of whales in Australia. Conservationists are demanding an immediate and thorough inquiry into what they say is the suspicious stranding of 200 whales and dolphins. Fears that the mass stranding on an Australian beach on Sunday was caused by humans were raised because two separate species of cetaceans came ashore simultaneously. Most of the animals were pilot whales, but a number of bottlenose dolphins were also amongst those beached animals. Residents joined wildlife workers to spend hours keeping the surviving animals wet and cool before they could be lifted, pushed and hauled back into the water. I wish they'd do more than just put water on their skins. These creatures dehydrate when they're out of the water. You need to get a saline drip, preferably with additional nourishment in it, such as crushed herring. And you need to push a tube to the back of their throat and give them a drip of water in their mouths, just sponging them down, which is what these people believe is all you need to do. It's less than half of the problem. I'm going on a bit. I'll continue the story. The rescue operation succeeded in saving 54 pilot whales and 5 dolphins on Narracupa Beach on King Island, Tasmania. Most of the beached animals were dead by the time anyone could reach them. Wildlife workers and volunteers were delighted to have saved more than a quarter of the whales and dolphins, but they were maintaining a watch on beaches in the area for fear that some of the creatures might come ashore again during the next high tides. Officials of the Tasmanian Parks and Wildlife Service were trying to discover last night why 192 whales and 7 dolphins had beached themselves, but said that the stranding is likely to remain a mystery. Mark Simmons of the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society, and hang on with this story because we do get a bead in just a second. Mark Simmons of the Whale and Dolphin Conservation Society and an expert on cetacean strandings said that 2 species coming ashore together was enough to arouse suspicions of a human factor, including the use of sonar by the military.
UK weather.
Southern and western England and Wales fairly cloudy with occasional light rain, increasingly cold across Scotland, Northern Ireland, wintry showers in the west. Tuesday wet and windy with coastal gales, the rain turning heavier by the afternoon, especially in the west, colder in the north with significant snowfall on higher ground across Scotland.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation. The Gadget Detective.
Whether you know your kilobytes from your gigabytes, your standard from your high def, or your hard drive from your solid state, I'll be here every Wednesday from 9 to answer all your questions on anything technical, from fixing problems to choosing the right TV to buy, and much more. I'll also have great prizes, reviews, and exclusive info on the very latest gadgets. The Gadget Detective Show with me, Fevsy, Wednesdays from 9 p.m. UK time, right here on Play 2 UK.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Catch a podcast by its toe. If it squeals, let it go. Then pop to playradiouk.com/podcast and download another show. playradiouk.com/podcast. It's like going to a library without actually having to go.
The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Okay, that Australian story about the possibility that there is various military activity going off the Australian coast, which is interfering with the wildlife, and in particular shipping. And that was a story that came out of Australia last year, that there may have been some interference with shipping. Okay. I'll come back to what I was saying about if you're podcasting this, be really interested not only in hearing your views and thoughts and identifying your good self, if you get a moment. I'll do the email address for that after we've had a listen to something which is just hilarious. But also, if you're interested in just signing on as being somebody who'll tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods from time to time, we're really interested in knowing what's going on around the corner from you if you're podcasting in Japan or in China especially. Republic of Iran, we know we have a regular podcaster who listens to the show in the People's Republic of Iran, is it now called? Forgive me. Tommy at playradiouk.com is the email address. And we're not necessarily looking for, earth-shattering news or indeed punditry on global events, although that, of course, you may do if that's what you want to do. But we're particularly interested in knowing what's going on around the corner from you and basically how your day is. But one of the things that Global News Talk wants to do on Play Talk UK is just create this kind of global village where we find out what it's like from the other person's perspective, whatever it may be. 4 minutes to 11. This is just, if I've got the right clip, this is just a very, very funny spoof interview.
Senator Collins, thanks for coming in.
It's a great pleasure, thank you.
This ship that was involved in the incident off Western Australia this week...
Yeah, the one the front fell off?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very typical. I'd like to make that point.
Well, how is it untypical?
Well, there are a lot of these ships going around the world all the time, and very seldom does anything like this happen. I just don't want people thinking that tankers aren't safe.
Was this tanker safe?
Well, I was thinking more about the other ones.
The ones that are safe?
Yeah, the ones the front doesn't fall off.
Well, if this wasn't safe, why did it have 80,000 tonnes of oil on it?
Well, I'm not saying it wasn't safe. It's just perhaps not quite as safe as some of the other ones.
Why?
Well, some of them are built so the front doesn't fall off at all.
Well, wasn't this built so the front wouldn't fall off?
Well, obviously not.
How do you know?
Well, because the front fell off and 20,000 tonnes of crude oil spilled into the sea caught fire. It's a bit of a giveaway. I just like to make the point that that is not normal.
Well, what sort of standards are these oil tankers built to?
Oh, very rigorous maritime engineering standards.
What sort of thing?
Well, the front's not supposed to fall off for a start.
And what other things?
Well, there are regulations governing the materials that they can be made of.
What materials?
Well, cardboard's out.
And?
No cardboard derivatives.
Like paper?
No paper. No string, no sellotape.
Rubber?
No, rubber's out. They've got to have a steering wheel. There's a minimum crew requirement.
What's the minimum crew?
Oh, one, I suppose.
So the allegations that they're just designed to carry as much oil as possible, all the consequences, I mean, that's ludicrous.
Absolutely ludicrous. These are very, very strong vessels.
So what happened in this case?
Well, the front fell off in this case, by all means, but it's very unusual.
But Senator Collins, why did the front fall off?
Well, a wave hit it.
A wave hit it?
A wave hit the ship.
Is that unusual?
Oh, yeah. At sea, chance of a million.
So what do you do to protect the environment in cases like this?
The ship was towed outside the environment.
Into another environment?
No, it's been towed beyond the environment,
yes,
not in the environment.
No, but from one environment to another environment.
No, it's beyond the environment. It's not in an environment. It has been towed beyond the environment.
Well, what's out there?
Nothing's out there.
Well, there must be something out
there. There is nothing out there. All there is sea and birds and fish.
And?
And 20,000 tonnes of crude oil.
And what else?
And a fire.
And anything else?
And the part of the ship that the front fell off. But there's nothing else out there.
Senator Collins, thanks for joining us.
A complete void.
Yeah. We're out of time.
The environment's perfectly safe. We're out of time?
Yeah.
Can you book me a cab?
But didn't you come in a Commonwealth car?
Yes, I did.
What happened?
Well, the front fell off.
Sorry about the quality. It's like hiss on that. But it was worth enduring, wasn't it? Wasn't it well done? A couple of Australian comedians. In Britain, we've got John Bird and John Fortune who do something not dissimilar on a programme with an impressionist called Rory Bramley. Yep. But those guys in Australia, I think, if it's a phrase that I dare use, take the biscuit. Okay, Louise has emailed, I wish I could understand why you have a member of the BNP on Play Radio. I do not believe him for one moment when he says that BNP policy would not stop black and Asian and Jewish presenters broadcasting on radio or television. He does not even want the above people in this country, so how could he allow them to broadcast to British people? Are people so shallow and ignorant that they do not understand what would happen if these vile people ever came to power in this country? As I said in my first line, I don't understand why you give him airtime, but I keep hoping, along I suspect with many others of your listeners, that you will give Simon Darby enough rope to hang himself. Rope here, Louise, is available to all. We're not partial in how we dispense rope. It's good rope. If a peer of the realm wanted to come on, we would provide silk friggin' rope. Rope is freely available at this radio station, as is airtime to all. On Play Talk UK, you may not break the law. That's up to a point a shame, because some of the laws, I believe, in this country are swinging, over-strident, overprotective. There's a climate of fear in broadcasting in this country which is preventing some things that ought to be heard, if only because they are the honestly held views of frustrated people, from being said. And that stinks. That is lousy. That is possibly stacking up trouble for the future. Because if you don't let people say what's on their mind, if you prevent people, if you gag people, if you prevent people from saying, these are my fears and hopes, I submit them to you in all humility. You tell me whether you think they're good ideas, justified fears, reasonable hopes, constructive proposals, and if you say nay to them, fine, that's the democratic process. But Louise, it does strike me in your email that you are better at writing, you may be better at writing and speaking than listening. Because I happen to believe that if someone says that his party would not prevent black, Asian and Jewish presenters broadcasting on the radio and television, and I do believe Simon Darby when he says that, okay, but when he says that, that is what he is saying and that is what he believes. If you want to challenge him on that, you have to call, my love. You have to have the courage of your convictions. You have to put your mouth where you're at the moment, where your emails are. The start, Tommy this is Tamsin, who says, thank you. The start of a proper debate tonight did happen with Mr. Darby. He was correctly challenged, and the media are reacting. I don't usually read the Telegraph, but Simon Heffer on the 25th of February had something useful to add. These are difficult times. Tamsin, have a few more things that I need to say, but need to think. What, dear girl? What did Simon Heffer say in the Telegraph? I know that Rob Liddell, I think his name is it Rob Liddell, who used to be, I think, a BBC journalist until he had to leave, if I remember correctly. I might have got that wrong, in which case, forgive me. It's done in all innocence. Ron Liddell had to say recently, it saddens me to say it, but I agree with the stance. No, he didn't say I agree with the stance of the BNP, but he said something along the lines of, it is important that the BNP are allowed to say what they want to say. And I'm with him on that one. Okay? Mustn't be too frightened, ladies. It is ladies here, Louise and Tamsin. You mustn't be too frightened. Be concerned, be vigilant, you know, but this is a Crime Watch nightmare scenario here. You know, do not have nightmares, for goodness sake. Simon will be with us next Monday from 10 onwards. It started out as a 10-minute, then a 20-minute. Now it's half an hour. It'll be 45 minutes before long. Because people want to talk to him. And because we like to regard ourselves as the only home of free speech, this new media venture in British broadcasting, we're going to let him. But then we'll let everybody else speak as well. Everybody else speak, as long as you don't break the law of the land or commit libel, which Simon doesn't come close to doing. Reminder, our number is 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. It's Global News Talk on Play Talk UK with myself, Tommy Boyd.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Here she is, my sexy new MP4 player from City-Sales. The latest technology giving me music and video wherever I go, in a range of stunning colors, all for just £60. And here are her matching speakers. Gorgeous! Plus picture keyrings, audio-visual baby monitors. Oh, she's so cute. And the baby's kinda nice too. The hottest audio-visual equipment straight to your door. Just visit city-sales.co.uk. City-Sales. Looking good. Sounding great.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, the Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Yeah, if you're a fan of those Australian comedians that I played a little clip of, you'll realise that I played the wrong clip. It was set at sea. There's a story coming out of Australia at the moment that 200 pilot whales and separately a school of dolphins beached themselves on the same beach in Australia, in Tasmania. Some believe that human interference must have caused this. Otherwise, why would two entirely separate schools of these cetaceans beach themselves? And suspicion is falling on the military, who were out testing sonar equipment. And not long ago, something like this happened in Australia. And again, these two very funny guys did a sketch based on that. Just before we get to it, though, this is an interesting story from Greece today. Greece has condemned reports of vandalism against Greek tourist buses in Macedonia, claiming it's the result of anti-Greek rhetoric emanating from the Macedonian government. Now, we did not know, I suspect, outside Greece and Macedonia, that there is this intense and possibly quite dangerous rivalry between Macedonia and Greece. Here's the background. Police spokesman Stefan Dimoski in the Macedonian resort of Ohrid says vandals had spray-painted offensive slogans on 3 Greek buses, but he denied Greek media reports that rocks were thrown or there were attacks on Greek tourists. Greek Foreign Ministry spokesman Georgios Koumoutsakos said, such acts hurt contact among nations and are the result of nationalist intolerant rhetoric from the government. Now, here we go. Greece and Macedonia have been locked in dispute over the country's name, which Greece says implies territorial claims on its northern province of Macedonia. And Greece has consistently vetoed Macedonia's entry into NATO over the issue. So we've got one of those good old-fashioned it's mine disputes over a Greek territory called Macedonia, and a simmering loathing between Macedonia and Greece because Macedonia has the same name as the bit of territory that the Greeks own, but which it seems the Macedonians might want. It's hopefully not a story that's going to have any kind of domino effect on world peace, but I just always think it's a shame that we in the United Kingdom, I don't know about around the world, don't tend to get reports about little stories like that, which just remind us that there is a world outside Sidcup, or if you're listening in Australia, a world outside this beach in Tasmania. Let's take a listen then to these two funny guys. This was the comedy sketch I'd intended to play, where they play, I think, a politician and an interviewer, and they're discussing a whale that's been killed by a seismic test.
10's Late News with Tracy Spicer.
Tonight, there are concerns tonight a whale found floating off Victoria's southeast coast could have died as a result of survey work carried out by an oil company. The whale was discovered by an Esso seismic survey crew about 26 nautical miles off Lake's Entrance in East Gippsland. Sharks have been in a feeding frenzy around the carcass. Local fishermen say they're concerned about the effects underwater geological work could have on marine life. However, Esso says it hadn't started its survey when the whale was found, and the frequency given out by its equipment wouldn't hurt a whale.
This week, John Clark and Brian Dawes' attention was distracted from the election campaign by a curious story that caught their eye, but just might not have caught yours. A whale was found dead last Saturday off Lake's Entrance in Victoria, in an area where a multinational energy company is conducting seismic tests for oil and gas.
Minister, thanks for your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the program. It's good to be here.
I'd like to ask you about this incident where a whale died this week.
Yes, very sad indeed, yes.
Yeah. What exactly happened?
This is just the one the other day?
Yeah.
In Bass Strait?
Mm-hmm.
Whale that died of old age?
Well, it didn't, did it?
This is the one down at Lake's Entrance?
Yeah.
In the area where they do the seismic testing?
Yeah.
Yeah, died of old age.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, you don't so much know it as... It's a question of likelihood. As I understand it, that's the most likely scenario.
Was it an old whale?
Yeah, I believe it was a fairly elderly mammal, yes.
Well, how do you know that?
Well, it'd have to be, wouldn't it? I mean, you're not going to die of old age unless you're getting on a bit, are you? Have a look in the dictionary.
Okay. But does this happen fairly often with whales?
Whales dying of old age?
Yeah.
In the areas where they do the seismic testing?
Yeah.
No, not a lot. And let me say, there was no seismic testing, as I understand it, being done in that area.
And who told you that?
The company who does the seismic testing.
The mining company?
I believe that's what they do, yeah.
Now, what is seismic testing exactly?
Seismic testing is an environmentally friendly and deeply sensitive way of firing an enormous sonic impulse into the ocean floor in order to see if there's anything down there.
And what happens if anything's in the way?
Well, there isn't anything in the way. There's just water down there. I mean, it's fired off a boat. You got the boat sitting on the top, and then below the boat, the blue area, that's just water.
I realise that. But is there anything in the water? I mean, fish and whales and things?
Oh, there are a few critters in there, but there's a fair bit of water between them. I don't know whether you've ever been fishing, for example. You'd be aware of this ratio. There are a fair bit more water than there are critters.
Yeah, exactly. But so there are creatures down there?
Well, no, not if you're going to fire a huge sonic impulse into the ocean floor. They get out of the area pretty briskly once the trouble starts. They're not idiots.
How do they communicate with each other?
Under the water?
Yeah.
Using sound. It's very clever. It's all sort of sonar.
How do they use sonar to communicate if the mining company's firing a sonic boom into the ocean floor?
Yes, that's a very good question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer. I'm not a botanist.
So this old whale that died, where is he now?
It's not there anymore.
Still in the sea?
Well, nobody knows where it is. It's disappeared, apparently.
And who told you that?
The company that does the seismic testing.
Well, what were they doing out there?
They were just out there making sure that there was no seismic testing being done.
Why?
Just in case anything went wrong.
Like what?
Well, if a whale's going to die of old age, for example, you wouldn't want it to happen during a seismic test.
No. Thanks for your time.
Bugger up your result, wouldn't it? Sorry, just clearing my throat.
Those guys are so good because they're completely dry and utterly cool. And forgive me, I'm going to do what everybody does when they've got up a comedy clip, and I went to YouTube to do it. Be quite naked about that. Immediately above it, it says worst blooper ever. And can we resist it? It's only 13 seconds. Let's see what we got.
Into the early morning hours. These showers are starting to die down a bit, and we are beginning to see some showers moving into Louisiana.
Oh, it's totally visual. So it's a weather forecaster in Australia, and they just put up the wrong caption underneath him. At the top it says weather for southeast satellite reading, and the caption underneath him, which should be his name, just says child molester. So it's a totally visual one there. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm ashamed to admit that I missed a few Skypes that were texting whilst we were talking with Simon Darby. Rob added himself as a friend, so welcome to our Skype contact list, Rob. If you're listening on your PC, your laptop, or maybe even if you're podcasting and you can get back to your laptop PC and download Skype, it is a fantastic way of communicating with us. The text facility is instantaneous, comes up right on the screen without getting in the way of anything. Or, of course, you can talk if your laptop has a microphone. Your PC, you'll probably need a little headset so that you can speak and listen. But you get fantastic quality contribution. Our address is play.radio.uk. So you download Skype, which takes it's about 2 minutes. They keep upgrading it, and it just gets better and better. It provides pretty much broadcast quality sound, so sometimes we have people on Skype and you can't tell that they're not here in the studio with us. Which is a bit annoying because it does away with that sort of superiority of the broadcaster as defined by the voice quality. When somebody is on telephone and you're in the studio, there's no doubt about who's the boss man. But with Skype, you know, level playing field, fantastic. Our Skype address is play.radio.uk. Okay, mind the switchboard number 01243 55 60 60. Let's take a Skype call. Oh, slight technical. Had a call coming in and I lobbed it off. We're still learning with technology, but hey, we're getting better. So Rob joined as a Skype contact this evening, and he says, hey, add me as a friend, please. It's Rob here. Could you please ask Simon Darby? It's going to be hard for me to archive this until the next time Simon is on, Rob, but I'll do you the service of reading out your question quickly. Anyway, he says, your manifesto states that you would withdraw all foreign aid and instead use this money to fund the voluntary repatriation. Do you not think the native working classes would feel resent for the BNP when they see millions of pounds leaving the country along with certain people who could be seen as being beneficial to our economy? Okay. So that's a good question. I did not know that that's in the BNP manifesto. Thank you very much indeed for that, Rob. Welcome aboard. It's Lane here, I believe. Hello, Lane.
Yes, not Len.
No.
As I've been called on this thing before. Yes. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. I'm well. It's a sunny Monday. It was where we are, so that always helps, doesn't it? How about you?
It was up north for once as well. It was lovely.
Beautiful.
I've got a little theory, a little sort of conspiracy theory. Excellent. Well, not a theory, it's more of a question. Are you aware of the well, you will be. The loan that we took out from America in 1945.
Yes.
Just to just keep the Britain afloat.
Yes.
And we paid it back on New Year's Eve of 2006.
Is that right?
Yes.
That went largely unsung, didn't it? Go on.
Yeah, and 2007 onwards is when we fall into this strange monetarily, well, just the whole credit crunch thing.
Yeah.
And is there a link? Is there? Because I think that that loan was the reason why there was like such a special relationship between Britain and America. Because with any sort of loan, I think there's things tied to it, and I think that's probably why we followed them into the Gulf. I blame Tony Blair for that. You know, I've thought, well, I don't personally think he had any choice, because I think America was like, well, you owe this money, until you've paid it off, you just do what we say. But I think it's not. It's more of a rambling, incoherent theory than an actual gelled one. But
no, sorry, Bob.
I think it's all linked.
Beginnings of a good, solid piece of journalism, if I may say so. There's more to this than a conspiracy theory. I don't know what the various conditions of a loan like that might be. We all know, don't we, that if we borrow 10 grand, then we might be signing our house away or our children or something. I would have thought that... I would have thought, of course, that the kind of loan that we needed in 1945 would have come with one or two little conditions attached as to how we spend it, of course. And and maybe one or two other unwritten, or at least not publicised provisions. Let's just run through it. Where were we? Where did we follow the Yanks into Suez, which was our first taste of combat, unless you count skirmishes?
Well, we supported them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We supported them. We didn't. Well, I think we did in. No, actually, no, we did in Suez Canal. We sent our bombers over there to help them flatten some land. And I think that, like, the Vietnam thing we weren't opposed to. We didn't endorse, did we? But we weren't sort of... Whenever we went, right, it's an outrage what they're doing, the British government, they were sort of, well, we'll leave them to it type thing. You know? They didn't really speak out, did they?
Let's just park Vietnam there for a second, because I was working in Fleet Street when Harold Wilson resigned, who was our Prime Minister for much of the time that America was fighting in Vietnam. And there was a very interesting story did the rounds at the time. And it goes like this. When the chief of the CIA heard that the British Prime Minister Harold Wilson was going to resign, he didn't get on the phone and beg him not to. He rustled up a USAF jet, and he was halfway across the Atlantic, flying over to tell Harold Wilson either not to resign, or if he did resign, to keep his mouth shut. But Harold Wilson got up before the nation at lunchtime. I've never forgotten the lunchtime, because it was such a shock, this news. Nobody had expected him just to say, I'm packing it in.
Yeah.
He got up and announced to the nation that he'd resigned before the chief of the CIA could land, presumably at a USAF base in the United Kingdom, and get to Harold Wilson first. So the plane turned round and took him home. Now, the guy in question, the chief of the CIA at the time, was none other than, it was George Bush, Senior.
Right.
So, whether there's any truth in it is one thing.
Yes.
But if there is 50%, if it's 50% true, you've got yourself the beginnings of something, haven't you? But what?
Yeah. Thing is, that sort of thing, it might be true, because back then nobody knew Bush would end up being president.
Correct.
So why would they make something up about that? And there's the link. That's a good link. I like that. But it's there's just, I don't know. It's what I pondered on quite a bit, because I remember when where was I? I was actually at work, and I was looking at BBC News or whatever on the internet when it was the day they were going to put the money back. The last loan was, I think, was about I've forgotten how much it was. The last bit of the loan, I think it was about 4 billion or something.
Yeah.
We borrowed 4 billion. I think the last bit of the loan was just a few million or something like that.
Right.
But apparently 12 million pounds, I think it was. Anyhow, apparently there's a few times, because of the way that, the world's finances were and how much it would negatively affect us, we sort of deferred payment. So I think there was 6 years where the payment was deferred, and that meant paying off the loan 6 years later, obviously.
Right.
So maybe if we paid it off before the Gulf War, maybe we wouldn't have gone in. Maybe.
No,
I seem to feel a little bit more distance between us and America now.
Oh yeah.
Partly because I think Obama's taken them somewhere else. I don't think he's particularly bothered about us, to be honest.
No. Although, as we've discovered on this programme, he's got a certain affinity with Britain in as much as A, he was born a British citizen. His dad had a British passport. B, he's got a half-sister who lives in Woking. And C, he came over to visit her a few years back. Do you know this? This is fantastic.
No.
Have you ever been to a place called Woking?
This is. I know of it.
It's dead. Dead as
Heathrow sort of area.
Dead as a doornail. Dead as a doornail. 2 or 3 iffy pubs.
Didn't someone want to drop a bomb on Woking?
I think that was Slough.
What was it called? Yes! They're very close to, aren't they? Geographically, I think.
Come friendly bombs and fall on Slough and get it ready for the plough. It isn't fit for humans now. Swarm over death. John Betjeman. Anyway, so Barack Obama is going around the world visiting his relatives. This is about 10 years ago. Yeah. I've told the story before on this. If you're podcasting and you've heard this one, forgive me, but I think it's a cracker. And what happened was, his sister met him and then said, what do you want to do? So he said, well, I don't know. What is there to do in Woking? Okay. And she said, not a lot. So she said, why don't you go out with my boyfriend and have a few? So she phoned her boyfriend up and said, I've got this American cousin of mine over here. He's a nice lad. He wants to get hammered. So apparently...
Jesus.
I know. So apparently this bloke who didn't know who he was meeting, right, he phoned a few of his mates and they did their usual Friday night trawling round the pubs. And apparently, to his credit, Barack was smoking and drinking just as heavy as the rest of them. I don't know whether he got in a fight outside the Chippy, which would have really made him an honorary Brit, wouldn't it?
I think we might have heard about that in the Sun if it had happened.
It was 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago.
Yeah. How cool was that?
How cool was that, yeah.
You learn something every day. Tom.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I haven't learnt. And my wife is polite enough to sometimes, when the news is on, turn to me and say, what's that all about? And I have to usually bullshit her a little bit, as you do. But what she always says to me is, if there's a recession and we are borrowing our way out of it, but nobody's got any money, who are we borrowing it from? And I don't know. I don't know.
That's the thing.
We're all broke. We are broke. The United States is busted. Everywhere's broke.
But who isn't broke?
Well, Roman and
China's not broke.
Somebody's not broke. We're not borrowing it from China. We'd know about it. Who are we borrowing?
How many times have we found these things out years down the line, though?
Well, why do we have to find... I mean, you're at your PC. I've got a PC here. If we were to Google now, British debt...
Where's the money coming from?
Who's lending it to us? Is it some bloke in Switzerland? Is it J.P. McManus? Is it... I mean, it's not Roman Abramovich. Apparently, his personal wealth has diminished by 6 billion in the credit crunch.
Do you know what? I know exactly who it is.
Go on.
It's Elvis.
Elvis.
That's what he's been doing. It's Elvis. He's been sitting back, cashing in the royalties. And, yeah, man. Elvis lives and he might end up owning the world. That's probably what he wanted in the first place, I think. well.
I can't make up my mind about Elvis Presley. We'll come back to him another day. Always good talking with you, Lane. Can I ask you if if the photograph that I enjoy looking at whilst you're on is you or Chris Moyles?
That's me.
Okay, I hope you're flattered.
Singing in my band.
Beautiful.
Yeah, nope. I detest Chris Moyles with every fibre of my being.
Same here.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. Do you know that cool Australian thing you just played?
Yeah.
It's a very similar thing was done on the Day with Chris Morris, and he rang up in America, he rang up a McDonald's burger joint, and it was supposed to be a stricken submarine. And so he was going along with this stricken Russian submarine under the sea plot, where there's obviously this guy in America in McDonald's just didn't have a clue what he was talking about, and he was going something like, "What's the situation down there? What's it like?" And he's going, "It's quite busy. There's 3 people in," and he was going, "Ah." And he went, "This is a McDonald's." He's going, "Is that a code word?" And he just really he turned everything back on him. But obviously, the poor lad didn't know what was going on. But it was absolutely hilarious.
I'll look it out.
So I recommend you find it.
I'm going to do it.
Somewhere.
We don't get enough Chris Morris on our television screens, do we? He's fantastic.
Nah.
Okay,
I think he chooses not to.
I think he's very selective. Yes. He's a good lad. You're a good lad.
Yes.
Good talking to you. Take it easy.
Cheers, dude. You as well.
Thanks a lot.
See you, man.
Yep. Nice guy. That's Lane. Skype. play.radio.uk. Aaron Davis has Skype text in, and we'll get to his Skype text right after another burst of the news.
Now, live across the UK, the national and international news update.
Now, stay with this one. It may confuse you. It did me to begin with. United Russia bolstered its command over the national polity, securing victories in regional parliamentary elections over the weekend despite the economic turbulence. Rival parties, meanwhile, complained of widespread violations in the more than 3,000 regional and municipal elections held in 79 regions yesterday, while the new Kremlin-backed pro-business party Right Cause notched a surprising success in Toylati. Preliminary results today show United Russia, which is led by Prime Minister Putin, holding commanding leads in all 9 regional parliamentary elections. Fun story, Johannesburg, a little dog with a big heart which had just given birth, intervened when a mother tiger rejected one of her 3 cubs. Scrappy, who is a Jack Russell cross belonging to Marty Berger, owner of a restaurant at the Noah's Ark Zoo in Nigel, on the East Rand, is now feeding the 1-week-old female tiger. The mother rejected the little tiger because it was apparently the weakest of her 3 cubs. Scrappy had already taken the puppies of my Chihuahua, Chappies, which were born a day after hers 4 weeks ago, away from their mother, so I knew she wouldn't mind being the little tiger's mother. Beautiful.
UK weather.
Southern and western England and Wales fairly cloudy with occasional light rain, increasingly cold across Scotland and Northern Ireland with wintry showers in the west, dry with broken cloud elsewhere. Wet and windy with coastal gales, the rain turning heavier by the afternoon, especially in the west, colder in the north with significant snowfall on higher ground across Scotland.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Once upon a time, in a magical land called the Internet, there lived an MP3 player. Now, this poor little MP3 player was cursed many years ago by the wicked witch of the airwaves to only ever play one song. But like any curse of old, there is always a legal loophole, and this curse was no different, and could be lifted after the kiss of a noble prince. And look, what's this on the horizon? Why, it's the Play Radio Prince. Oh, forget all of that, poppycock. For straight talking without the frills, check out Play Talk from Play Radio. Go to playradiouk.com/podcast.
The Play Radio iPlayer is the best way to listen to all your favourite Play Radio stations, and it's so easy to find. Just go to playradiouk.com and click on the Listen Now logo at the top of the page. Not only can you select any station at the click of a button, you can also email the studio, see the webcam, and join our forum. See what tunes we're playing right now, plus download the very best ringtones and games to your mobile phone. The Play Radio iPlayer. Click on the logo at playradiouk.com now. Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
There's been a steady stream of new Skypers offering to swap contact details this evening. Forgive me if I'm occasionally elsewhere mentally, hopefully not for too long. If you download Skype, or if you've got Skype and you contact us using our address, which is play.radio.uk, we can swap contact details. You don't get anything coming through from us. We don't bother you with anything, but it means that you can text in a comment if you don't feel like calling one in. So Aaron Davis says, in response to a couple of emails that we've had, tell you what, let's just see who's Skyping in live rather than appear rude. Hello, you're on Play Talk UK. Who's this?
Miss Boyd.
Hello, you're okay, a little bit distorted, but let's see how we do with this one. Hello, my name's Tom. Who's this?
Mr. Boyd, this is Zacchaeus Mondesir from USA.
Hi.
Hey, you're listening to your show, and I should tell you that it's fantastic, and congratulations on everything. And I'm here to comment mostly on the free speech, especially having Mr. Simon Darby on your show.
Okay, what do you say?
Well,
okay, lost him. Now, I'm going to do something just to show you how it works here, because this is not conventional radio. What I can do now is just text him back and just say, okay, hi, try again. This is a note for you as well if you want to Skype in, good listener, ever. You need to, I don't know if his problem or her problem, I couldn't actually tell who we were talking to. And it's signed Louisiana, France. And I'm afraid I'm so ignorant that I don't know whether this is France or whether France is a place in Louisiana. I guess France is a place in Louisiana, since the accent was plainly American. But I'm just going to quickly Skype him back and say, hi, try again. Turn off your media player. Okay, let's see whether that works. Or maybe I could try him or her. Because, let's get rid of that. Okay. Let's, just bear with me. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll quickly read out Aaron's Skype text, because he has Skype texted in response to two emails that I read out from lady listeners, which was back to back. The first went... Okay, Mondesir is now Skype text. I agree with you with free speech, but to what extent should this be done? And it's a he. Okay. Mondesir, free speech should be allowed unless, in every respect, unless it is either an incitement to physical or emotional violence, or whatever is being expressed will cause unfair, unjust and undue physical or emotional harm to a party which is at the time that the speech is made innocent. That's what we think at Play Talk UK. Louise emailed earlier, I wish I could understand why you have a member of the BNP on Play Radio. And Tamsin said something along those lines as well. But she said it was at least the start of some kind of a debate with Simon Darby this evening. These are two listeners who happen to be female, that's all. And they have deep reservations about hearing the voice of Simon Darby as a pundit on Play Talk UK. He's with us on a Monday evening from 10 o'clock UK time it was going to be 10 minutes, turned into 20. Tonight it was 35, and we'll be ending up with a whole hour because people want to talk to him. And for me, that's acid. That is the acid test. If somebody wants to talk to somebody, let's hear the conversation if they're talking about things that affect us and are of interest to us. Now, Aaron Davis heard those emails read out from Tamsin and from Louise, and he has Skype texted him. Tamsin and Louise are epitomes of British society. They cannot and will not understand that people have views that do not conform to the PC norm of our media ignorant society. Simon Darby has been neither offensive nor offered any ism in his statements. I neither agree or disagree with what he has to say, but I fully recognise his freedom to say it. It's frustrating to me that when a party that has been subjected to a savaging via the media for many years has a chance to defend their stance, people are unable to give them that opportunity and criticise you, Tommy, for doing so. It seems obvious to me that it is easier to believe the negativity spread via hearsay than to get to the facts. Sad, says Aaron, but a public savaging is much more interesting to follow than to try and understand the true perspectives. Now, I think we've got Mondesir back. Hello again.
Hey, Mr. Boyd. Can you hear me now?
Much better. What have you done to improve that?
Well, I actually did what you told me to do. I went back and turned off the media player, and it's only the Skype that's on now.
Fantastic. Well, we've got you loud and clear, so we really want to hear what you have to say about free speech.
Okay. What I believe is, yes, free speech is actually very important in a society because I think you might have heard of what they call safety valves. You know, if people do not express themselves, you know, that might really result into violence. And but I believe there's also an extent to it, you know. For instance, if you're taking Mr. Simon Darby, he's really like a great guy, and I wouldn't mind going to a bar and having a beer with him. But I believe that he's dangerous to society at the same time, and not really to insult him, but it's just like a guy like Mr. Darby, and even that other guy that you had on the show, Mr. Raymond. These guys are extremely like far away from what we can call like a great place or good society in a sense, you know. I don't know if I'm making enough sense to you, but my point really is by having those two guys trying to separate in a sense, in other words, like the human race, the human beings, humankinds, I think it's really hurtful to society. And yes, they should be allowed to, you know, say what's on their minds, but not really like for one to follow them crazily, like going after them extremely crazy and not thinking about the consequences of it. So yes, either Mr. Simon Darby and Mr. Raymond, they both like really not helping humankind or society. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, that may or may not be true. And it's something that we can, to a large extent, put to one side when we're talking about the principle of free speech. Because I am somebody who has come to believe in what is often called libertarianism. I'm not a libertarian because I don't fully understand what that would mean. But there are some tenets of libertarianism and also something called minarchism, which has to do with allowing people to decide for themselves, to choose the course of their own life for themselves, provided it does no harm to somebody else. That seems to me to be the perfect way to live, and a reasonably easy situation to achieve, provided you're prepared to trust other people. And I do. And I believe that even if an organisation like the BNP were to suddenly metamorphose into a quasi-Nazi-like organisation and start telling the British public to behave in a dreadfully racist or anti-Semitic way. And I have to say that this is not, it seems to me, what they are doing at all at the moment. But if they did, I fully trust the British public to say, for God's sake, there's something to
May I interrupt you for a sec?
You must.
Okay, what I can say really is just, yes, it is great to maintain national identity. It's awesome, and I'm really all for that, you know. But to a large extent, no, you cannot do that, because really, in a sense, the purpose of life really is just live together and trying to recognize and trying to know like another human being, someone who is different from you. And this is why I mentioned earlier, yes, I would love just sitting down and listen to Mr. Darby even more, even Mr. Raymond. Yes, these guys would actually strengthen my intellectual capacity just so I can have a good argument against whatever comes to me in life. But having them sort of like as a leader, I think it would be like, yes, it would harm society. And I should tell you that even Hitler, I admire Hitler a lot. I read a lot about him. He's a great guy, you know, but it's just like what he had. He used it for the wrong purpose. And Hitler, I'll say that if you don't mind, he was He was extremely smart, and I admire him. And so I'm sort of like putting Mr. Darby and Mr. Raymond sort of like in the same rank, not really trying to compare them with Hitler. I'm just saying, in conclusion, really, it's just like, yes, they're great, but listen, those guys are great for a debate, great for a discussion, great to have a beer with, but extremely dangerous when it comes to human lives, because they want to separate us.
But you don't fall for that. So what makes you think other people will? What makes you think...
I'm sorry.
You have not been persuaded by their rhetoric because you recognise it for what you think it is, but what makes you think that other people will fall for it? What makes you think that other people aren't as clever as you?
I'm not saying they're not, but it's just the fact that sometimes by just knowing that, you know, you're in need of something, and I heard you say not too long ago, especially for white people, it's just like they're in need for something in terms of like insecurity, you know, like it's just like they have been forgotten, you know, and it's just like we're trying to find someone who's sort of like interceding on our behalf, if I may say that. And listen, even though that it would be like upon someone else's life, at times, you know, we'd say, no, it doesn't matter. You know, I just want to feel secure. I just want to be safe. And even on the other hand, for black people, you could say they sort of like, yes, want to be the top dogs. And they really wouldn't mind, you know, like however they can get even, if I may say. But it's just the point, you know, like sometimes people blindly just like put themselves into something and not realizing, listen, we're not in this world all by ourselves, and we need to look out for each other, and this is how we can create a better world, in my opinion. But yeah.
Okay. What I'm going to do is suggest I'd like to hear you talking to Simon himself and putting your points to him. So perhaps on another occasion when Simon is guesting on the programme as a pundit, Mondesir, you'd be good enough to Skype in and we can maybe get a dialogue going between you. That would be interesting.
I'll definitely do that. And let me tell you one thing, Mr. Boyd, I really appreciate your show. I've been listening to it. And I'm actually calling you from the United States, and I live in Louisiana, Lafayette, in the USA. Yes, it's really, I really admire you. It's just so great, and you're almost on my list as a role model, as my role model. If you continue on doing great job, I'll definitely put your name on my list as a role model. Thank you ever so much.
Be cautious with that. I'm really grateful for your comments and for your time. Thank you, Mondesir.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now. Nice man. Skyping in from, it turned out I was right, France in Louisiana. Okay, just accepting a few more people who are Skyping in with their contact details. Thanks very much indeed for that. And Tamsin has emailed further information about an article that she found in the Telegraph, which we'll get to right after another little dose of international news.
Now, live across the UK, the national and international news update.
Okay, Americans, when asked what countries posed a danger to the United States, most Americans pointed to an emboldened Iran, the military havens of Afghanistan and Pakistan, or resurgent China and Russia. But there's a growing fear in security circles that a nation at America's doorstep may descend swiftly into chaos and provide the greatest immediate threat. This country is Mexico, which is locked in an increasingly violent struggle with drug cartels. This quote from the United States Joint Forces Command says, in terms of worst-case scenarios, two large and important states bear consideration for a rapid and sudden collapse. And those two countries that the Americans are concerned about are Mexico and Pakistan. Iraq's Deputy Foreign Minister Labid al-Abawi announced today that a number of Iranian diplomats held in Iraq for the last 2 years are going to be released within hours. According to the latest news I have received, this is Iraqi President... No, this is... hang on a second, I'll read it as it's a quotation. According to the latest news I have received, the two Iranian diplomats who were arrested in Arbil, north of Iraq, will be released in 1 or 2 days. Abawi, who accompanied Iraqi President Jalai Talabani during a visit to Tehran last week, told the world's news. And Wall Street's benchmark Dow Jones Index plunged Monday to close at levels not seen since 1997 after US insurance giant AIG revealed monumental quarterly losses of $62 billion. AIG's results came hours after the US government announced a $30 billion lifeline to the ailing company, on top of $150 billion it's already received in bailout funding. The US government says it needed to prevent broad damage to the financial system and announced today it was restructuring the bailout of AIG. And interestingly, Spain and Russia are set to sign a broad agreement for energy cooperation, Spanish Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero said today. Tomorrow, our two states will sign a broad agreement on energy cooperation in developing, exploiting, transporting and selling energy resources, both renewables and traditional.
UK weather.
Southern Western England and Wales fairly cloudy with occasional light rain, increasingly cold. Scotland and Northern Ireland with wintry showers in the west, dry with broken cloud across the rest of the country. Tuesday, wet and windy with coastal gales, the rain turning heavier by the afternoon, especially in the west. Colder in the north with significant snowfall in the higher ground across Scotland.
UK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
If you're involved in motor racing, then you need Showtracks International. We're the world's #1 supplier of automotive display and pit lane equipment to the motor racing industry. We not only specialize in all aspects of pit box equipment, from race flooring to walling, lighting and gantries, but we also provide on-track services for both graphics and carbon fiber repair. Call us today on 01234 782 800 or just go to showtracks.net and see how we can help you.
Catherine Cat slips into something comfortable and settles onto her favourite crimson throne. A serious devotee of the most sensual things in life, Madame Cat is our art critic, a connoisseur of opera, theatre, fine paintings and literature. She's also a professional dominatrix and bon vivant, a lover of life and culture and of love itself. She is a must-listen every Monday on Play 2 at 9 o'clock or playradiouk.com/podcast.
The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Steve Paul will be here from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. Live tomorrow evening, that's UK time. Podcast Steve, if you've yet to have a listen. A big man with always interesting views. Steve has been around the block a few times. And if you're an international listener, he is probably the most typical Englishman I think you'll be able to hear. He speaks like an Englishman does, thinks like an Englishman does. He's an Englishman and we're proud of him. He's the most normal bloke I know. And he's a good bloke. And he has good views and he expresses them well. Simply, but well. Strongly, sometimes. Not always, but well. Stubbornly even. Not often, but occasionally. But well. So that's the Steve Paul Show from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And then it's myself. And just whilst we're on the subject of other shows on Play Talk UK, on Wednesday, let me see, we have the podcast show. Chris Reardon gives listeners some hints and tips, the good old dreaded hints and tips. It's really an access show. If you're interested in podcasting yourself, however you want to do it, Chris has been doing it for some years and he's the best around, the best we found at podcasting. And he's here from 8 until 9 live, or you can podcast his show. And it's really just swapping thoughts and stories about how you get a little audio blog or whatever you want to do. You can put your own radio show on if you want to, your own radio station if you want to. If you want to do it with our help and support at Play Radio, then we'll do that. And Chris is the avenue for that. So that's the podcast show. And then from 9 until 10, it's Fevzi. Now, Fevzi is an extraordinary broadcaster. He's a great listen. He's a lot of fun. He knows his onions, and his onions is technology. He's the gadget detective. And every week, once a week for an hour, we want Fevzi to go 2 hours. But Fevzi, because he's a very methodical man, has said to us, I'll go for 2 hours. I'll do 2 hours when I can make absolutely sure that the 2 hours will be as good as the 1 hour I'm doing at the moment. That's Fevzi. Thorough. And so he talks about IT, he talks about PCs, he'll talk about any kind of gadget that you can get over the counter, even if it's past its sell-by date and it's not functioning as it should. Fevzi has yet to be stumped, so strongly recommend the Gadget Detective Show, or you can podcast it. Again, if you're listening now on podcast, and you're aware of some of the other shows that we have, which are completely free, of course, try podcasting it if you're interested in technology. And we all are, frankly. How can you not be? Who the hell doesn't have to, fiddle with buttons nowadays? That's the Gadget Detective. And then Mike Mendoza will be along from 10 until 12. Mike with his own unique view on the world, its wife, and Brussels. Because he does not go off about Brussels. If you, like a great many people, have reservations about this artificial country which is being created, the EC, Mike's your man. That's from 10 until 12. This from Kevin G, who says, Hi, Tommy. Current talk, very interesting. Just looked it up, and Poland has a 50,000 Vietnamese community. This is on the back, I think, of something that we had a caller flag up from Poland last week on the show, on Global News Talk. He says that's similar to the size of the Vietnamese community in Britain. Is it? I didn't know we had such a staunch Vietnamese community. He says, great show again. Thank you for that. Let's chance it and have a word from those two reprobates in the Black Country. Hello. They're usually all over the shop. Completely disorganised, technically incompetent.
Let's get into getting the top from them.
What is going on at your end? I don't know. It gives you some insight. We in the United Kingdom are delightfully drawn into different communities, as all countries are, and they're from what's called the Black Country, but it's not what you might think. I don't know why they call the Black Country, but it's a very specific part of Britain, and it has generated a number of eminent individuals, comedians, such as the man called Frank Skinner, and footballers, such as the man called Stan Collymore. The Black Country folk have their own way and their own accent, and it's a very thick and rich accent. It is too. Often confusing to British people, never mind about an international audience. Stanley Collymore was a great centre-forward. Could have been even better, but he went off the rails occasionally, as great sportsmen can do. He played centre-forward for Liverpool. and occasionally scored just some of the greatest goals for Liverpool. But he was from the Black Country, and so he talked like that, which is a really unusual accent, like. No, is that right? That's bloody Scouse. Anyway, apparently the story goes that a bloke came into the dressing room after a training session, and he was a high-class tailor. And he was offering the Liverpool team shirts, trousers, jackets, and he had some very nice ties, some of the very wide ones. And all the Liverpool lads were gathered round, only Stan wasn't. He was down the other end of the dressing room. And there's this tie that they used to have, which was called a kipper tie, because it was shaped like this smoked fish that they like in England, which they call a kipper. So if you can imagine a very wide tie, that's called a kipper tie in England. But it threw up a language problem when one of the Liverpool players shouted across to Stan Collymore, "Stan, would you like a kipper tie?" And Stan allegedly replied, "Love one, 2 sugars." Now, they say that if you have to explain it, it isn't funny. But it may be that you simply don't understand it at all. All it is that the Black Country accent is so thick that the way you would pronounce cup of tea is exactly the same as any other Englishman would pronounce kipper tie. No, you're right, it wasn't funny. This from Tamsin, then, to clarify her earlier email about a journalist called Simon Heffer. She says, Simon Heffer in his article was saying that this is now turning into a time of social unrest and that governments and oppositions need to react. She says, I can't quote the whole thing, but would say at the end, he says, President Obama says he will slash his deficit, so must a government here. If the Tories are elected and fail, Tamsin, this is turning into a political broadcast. She says, we shall be off the map, and we must all dread that. The time to keep calm will have passed. Please try to read this. She PS's, these are strange times. I've always really disagreed with Mr. Heffer, and I'm a bit left. Thank you for that, Tamsin. Thank you for everybody who has emailed, everybody who has Skype text, everybody who has called, and everybody who has Skyped in. Stand by for the latest news, and it's music, music, music on Play 2.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.